Hi everyone, my name's Brad and I am That Busy Baker Dad. Welcome to my kitchen. Today we're making Witch's Brew mead. So I've made this mead before and I posted it on Facebook and Instagram, and I had a lot of requests from people for me to show them how to make it. So here I am. So follow along and you'll find out how to make what I'm sure will become a very delicious mead. Now, I am in no way a professional at doing this. I actually only recently started making meads, about 3 or 4 months ago. I started with just a couple of recipes I found on Pinterest actually. Just started out with a jar with a balloon stretched over top of it. Tried it out, liked it, decided I'll try making a bigger batch. I graduated to a milk jug with a balloon stretched over top of it. I know it's not the most sanitary, as balloon has a bunch of chemicals and stuff in it, but I didn't want to invest a whole pile of money into it without knowing if stuff was gonna turn out really good. I found I really enjoyed the whole process of making mead, so I started slowly investing into more and more things. I ordered a carboy with an airlock, and then another one, and it just goes on and on. I'm still working my way up to building larger and larger batches. The one thing I really like about meads is the fact that they're so versatile. You can put so many different things into it. And that's sort of how this came about. So I am a huge fantasy lover. Elves, dwarves, all that kind of stuff. Lord of the Rings, that's my jam. I also like things like the Roman Empire, the Greek gods, magic, all that sort of stuff. So I started thinking, why don't I just start naming the meads that I make after fantasy style titles? And yes, my wife does call me a nerd. Another thing that sparked this whole naming my meads after fantasy names is I did end up finding a mead, triple berry mead called Dragon's Blood. Of course I had to try it. So that's downstairs right now fermenting away. And I've come up with names for a bunch of different ones. Now I got to do some research into what I want to add to make it similar to the names. So now, how did I come up with this Witch's Brew mead? Well, I'm writing a novel right now, fantasy of course, and I'm in round 2 of editing. So while I'm editing, I'm also researching to write book 2, because this is going to be part of a trilogy. And in my research, I started researching witches. You know, the Salem witch trials, the European witch hunts, Wicca, witchcraft, witches' beliefs, all sorts of things. My eyes were really opened. Fruits and herbs symbolize a lot of different things. So again, I researched a lot and I settled on a number of different herbs and fruits to symbolize special things to go into this mead. So let's actually get into making this mead, and I will show you what ingredients I used and why I use those ingredients. Let's get to it. So we're going to start off with making a tea. So in this tea, we have half an ounce of oregano, which is to symbolize money drawing. We've got half an ounce of thyme leaves for love. We have half an ounce of rosemary for concentration. We've got 1 full ounce of white spruce needles for longevity. And we've got 1 lemon peel to symbolize friendship. So I have 1 gallon of water boiling away. So let's get this wrapped up and we'll get it in there. All right, let's get this into the water. So here's my gallon of water, and we're just gonna plop that in there, and we're gonna let it sit for a half hour. We'll come back to it in a bit. So while we're waiting for our tea, we're gonna get our next bag ready. Here we have 1 pound, 10.5 ounces of cranberries, dried cranberries. These are going to symbolize protection. To this, we're also going to add 3 cinnamon sticks. And these will be to symbolize prosperity, as well as 3 cloves. These are just whole cloves. And these are to symbolize wealth. So we're going to wrap this up and get this ready to go as well. So our tea is almost ready. We've got our cranberries, cloves, and cinnamon wrapped up. And I've also measured out 2 pounds of Canadian honey. The reason I went with 2 pounds is because I prefer my wines a little bit more dry. If it's extremely dry, I can always back sweeten it after primary. But I also don't know how much sugar the cranberries are going to add to this. So we're going to stick to the 2 pounds and we'll see how it turns out later. All right, so our tea's been sitting for a half hour now. So we're just going to take this out. Just take it right out. And I just throw it right into the bowl with the cranberries. And we're going to add this nice hot tea into our honey. So we've added the tea to the honey, and I should mention that honey also symbolizes healing. So that's all the components. So I'm just going to give this a quick stir just to get that honey all incorporated in. All right. Now I'm going to add the bag of cranberries just while it's still hot. So that way it'll help extract a lot of that cranberry flavor right off the bat. Now that that's done, we're just going to wait for that temperature of the must to cool down to about 90 degrees Fahrenheit. At that point, we can then pitch our yeast and get a lid on it. Okay, now that our tea's cooled down, I'm just going to actually remove the cranberries for a minute. Just going to put it in with here. And we're going to add our yeast. Now, for this, I'm using baker's yeast, Fleshman's to be exact. And I'm going to add a heaping teaspoon. Gonna pour that right in and give it a little shot extra. And now we're gonna stir this all in. We want to mix it really good to incorporate a lot of air in there, because the yeast will need the air to help it do its thing. So you can mix it pretty vigorously. Now that we got that all stirred up and it's all ready to go, we're going to put our cranberries back in. And there's a little bit of juice left over from the tea still, so we're going to just add that just to get more of that great flavor in. And now we're just going to pop our lid on with our airlock. There. And there's our Witch's Brew mead. I should mention that I also took a gravity reading, and starting gravity is at 1.082, which means it'll approximately come out at about 11%. But we'll take some readings as we go along and we'll see how it goes from there. So now we're just going to let that sit and do its thing for the next 2 weeks. At which point we'll probably do a rough rack, which means we will take the fruit out of the bucket and put the lid back on and let it go. If you enjoyed this video, like and subscribe for more crazy fantasy meads, food, and family moments, because that's what That Busy Baker Dad is all about. Thank you for joining me. Stay happy, stay healthy, stay magical.